Yeah.
And then years later, something else is revealed, that something bad is still occurring.
Yeah.
Now, it may be years,
Yeah.
but does anything like that ever occur?
So in other words, you do a case and somebody says the environmental condition is this way, and then you find out later they were lying. And they didn't take out all the dirty dirt they said they took out, and it's a disaster. That kind of thing?
Yes.
Generally, no. Generally, whatever the fact...
Well, that wasn't a good question then.
No, it was a good question. So the question was, somebody lies about it. Yes?
It's a very similar question. What happens if you litigate a case, the standard, let's say it's radon, is 4 picocuries.
Yeah.
And then years later they decide, no, the government decides that's not really the safe standard, the safe standard's 2, and you're left in a house with 3 because when your case happened, 4 was the standard.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And it might... there's no good answer to that question because that's going to be very fact dependent. So there's this thing called res judicata, which means it's been decided. So you kind of get to do a case only once. You don't get to do the same case twice. But what Chuck is saying is there's a material change that's occurred such that a cause of action which couldn't have existed before now might exist because there's been a change in standards. You might be able to get in there. It might be tough. That's not it. I sure as heck wouldn't be betting much more than a ham sandwich on it, but you might be able to get in there then. Because the thing where it does happen all the time isn't litigation, but on cleanup. So in New Jersey, you could get if you do a cleanup, you get what's called you used to get until about 2 years ago, a thing called a no further action letter. Anybody ever hear that? A no further action letter? That's... So so anyway, the thing is, you used to get a no further action letter. That means your property is clean. If the standards materially change, they can reopen those. So that's where the biggest problem is, not necessarily the litigation threat, but the agency coming back at you. In New Jersey, so you know, that's not the case anymore. Now they privatized it, and DEP doesn't review cleanups now. Now they have these private entities that review them, called LSRPs. Anybody ever hear that? LSRPs? That's who's doing it now, LSRPs. How
We got
doing?
about 10 minutes left. Do you want to skip right to good and bad experts?
We could sing.
We can sing.
We actually do a really nice thing. Now, we do Swami River, which is very, very good. If you want, we could do that for you. Where do you want to go? Where do you
go right near the end?
you
Good
want to
and
go?
bad experts?
Oh, you want to go to good and bad experts?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to good and bad experts. Okay, who wants to be a good expert? Okay, so we were putting our heads together trying to think of, in our mind, what makes a good expert, what makes a bad expert. A good expert is somebody that has strong and relevant experience. That's number one. Number two, strong and relevant education and training. Number three, speaks professorially. You know, you want somebody who opines, but sort of has that sort of, that's the experts I love, you know. Number two, has a good appearance. Number three, has good interpersonal communication skills. And last, has a strong win-loss record as an expert, being on the win side. Now, I will say this, in terms of interpersonal communication skills, in our business, we deal with a lot of experts who come from another country. You know, because I'm an environmental lawyer, a lot of the experts were trained in other countries and whatever. The thing is, I sue Exxon all the time and those types of companies. They always hire these kinds of people, and I love it. You know, I love it. I basically don't have to do much at all. They come in, they give their expert report, and the judge or the jury can't understand a word the expert's saying, not even a word, and they're speaking English. They're speaking English, but you wouldn't know it. That's, as an expert, as a lawyer, you don't want to pick an expert who can't speak, because an expert's job is to communicate an opinion. And if the expert can't communicate, half the battle is lost already. In fact, yes?
Yeah, but you also got to learn not to answer more than the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's right. Hopefully your lawyer that you're working with will teach you how to respond to questions. Right. It sounds like that. It sounds like you might have seen that happen once already.
Yeah, that was very helpful on us winning a case.
Yeah.
The person kept talking.
Kept talking and talking and talking. Some experts are just so full of themselves and have to let the whole world know just how brilliant they are, that they take themselves right to the brink of and go beyond losing the case. So that's not a good place to go. Okay, now we also have a slide called What Makes a Bad Expert. Not that this would be ever germane or relevant to anybody in this room, but what makes a bad expert? Obviously, it will be the converse to some extent of what you saw. Minimal experience, education, training that's relevant. Best example that we talked about, you're a Bergen County person and somebody calls you to talk about titlings. You're going to be a bad expert. That's just the way it is. You know, yeah, I read the book. No, that's not what I'm looking for, okay? I need somebody that's done it day in, day. Doesn't speak clearly or speaks without conviction, okay? The experts I love are the experts that go in there. I like people that speak clearly and believe what they're saying and show it. And you know, some of this you learn and some of it's just kind of natural, you know? I mean, that's just the reality, but some of this is learned. Somebody who isn't likable. I mean, we all see it, a lot of experts are just miserable people, and that's not going to be a good expert. So cases are decided by either judges or juries. Some cases you don't have a jury, you just have a judge deciding. Whatever it is, they're people. It doesn't matter what they do for a living, if they're a judge or they're a jury of 6 people that do whatever they do. They're all people, and people are people. And write that down, by the way. People are people. People. But now, I told you. Where's Barbara Streisand when you need it? The thing is this. People, at the end of the day, like nice people. And if you come off like a pompous idiot, okay, or as an obnoxious person, I'll never forget, we had an expert who we asked a question about. I think you were involved in the case, but you weren't there that day. But we asked an expert. No, it had nothing to do with you. But the other side, the other side, somebody asked him a question about our client and said, "What if you were our client's lawyer?" And he looked and he said, "Do I have to assume that?" Like, and as if he just couldn't stand our client. And it just went over so badly, you know. And I remember, you know, the jury. We didn't do so well in the case, unfortunately, for our poor people. But the jury couldn't stand the snickering by that expert, you know. People that aren't nice don't do as well. So it's a very fundamental kind of thing. People who are rattled on cross-examination don't do well. You got to be able to withstand cross-examination when you are, and that's a learned skill. That's not natural, that's a learned skill, and your lawyer will go over that with you. Your lawyer will mock cross-examine with you so you know what you're going to be asked up front. We all know what the other side's going to ask. There's no surprises. We all know what the other side's going to ask, and so you practice. You know, what if he asks you this? You know, sir, you admit that you're being paid today, right? Well, that's the stupid one, right? And so if your lawyer was stupid enough to ask you that, and you were my expert, I would tell you that you're going to only, first of all, you counsel your expert. The first thing you always tell your expert to do is tell the truth. And then you tell him what the truth is. And the truth, and then, so you say to him, so you'd probably say, yes, I am here, and that isn't in any way influencing my testimony, and I don't know why you would think it is. You know, I mean, you could just say that. And you should stick up for yourself. If they say, sir, you never visited the property, well, first of all, shame on you. You know, I would hope you did. You probably ought to. But, you know, you didn't. If you didn't inspect the property personally, that's going to be a vulnerability. That's going to be a vulnerability. If there's a darn good reason you didn't, you better be talking about that with the lawyer that retained you before you cross-examined, and you better explain why. No, I didn't, because if I did, it would be trespassing. Your client didn't give me access. We had requested it. We were able to go to the perimeter of the adjoining property, and we were able to get a fairly good view of it, and we also looked at an aerial photograph. So
there's also, I thought it would be safer to wait till after the fire stopped burning.
or the bullets stopped, or they stopped firing the bullets, you know. But I mean, but you wanna be prepared for that. And when I prepare my experts for cross-examination, I don't know if you and I ever did it, but I normally will, when you're playing basketball, you try to play with a hoop that's smaller than an actual game, so that it's easier when you're playing. And I try to beat up my expert more than I figure that they really will get beaten up, so that when they go out there, it doesn't feel so bad, and they're kind of used to it. And that's what I like to do.
We actually did once. He tried to prepare me, but I never got past the Swami River part.
I said, sir, you'd agree that you're Chuck Blount. He wouldn't answer the damn question, so we had no place to go, But, so anyway, that's what makes for a good expert and for a bad expert. Now, what was I instructed to do in terms of time now? Can I go over a few more things, or are we okay? Okay, good. So let's go over a few more things, and then we'll wrap up. Is that okay? All right, very good.